In this section, I want to show how you can perform an audit of your Google Analytics account. So we're going to dive into different settings and check whether they are set correctly. So to help you do that, I've created a cheat sheet with 2 pages full of pointers that you can go through. I've also added links with more information in case it's not very clear or descriptive yet what to do. So if you're very familiar with Google Analytics, you probably know what I'm meaning on every point. But if you're new and just starting out, try to have a look into those links as well, or just send me a message. So what we'll do is go through one of my Google Analytics accounts and kind of go point by point through the settings to see where you can find those and whether they should be correct. So to start at the top, let's cover the account structure as well. What you would like to see when you go into a property of a Google Analytics account is that if you're using the Universal Analytics, so the old version of Google Analytics, so that starts always with UA, you'd like to see 3 different views. You want to see a master or raw data view, so the one that you don't touch. I called my raw data view master. Sometimes others will call their reporting view master. So you want to see 3 different views: a master view, a reporting view, and a testing view. The different purposes of these are: the raw data view you will never touch, so you will always keep the data as clean as possible. Don't apply any filters, don't delete any data, don't touch it. The reporting view is the view you use on a day-to-day basis and is a copy of the testing view. And the testing view is the actual view where you make changes. So when you want to add a filter, you will first add it into your testing view, see if it worked, and then move that same change into your reporting view. So that way you never screw up basically your reporting view with wrong settings. So that's the first point. And secondly, we want to make sure that we have analytics installed on the primary domain. So in this case, if we go in our admin view, this is, by the way, where you can create additional views right there. But we want to see that, okay, in our account settings, we're looking at ZebraFarm, and it's part of a particular website. The website in our case is zebrafarm.co, so this website. Sometimes you might also have domains that have like subdomains. So the actual application, your web app, might run on app.zebrafarm.co, or you might have a subdomain called blog.zebrafarm.co. What you'd like to do is to have everything tracked from your master domain, so your root domain, your primary domain, all the way down to these subdomains. So you do not want to track. You don't want to just track a subdomain. You'd like to track all domains. So I would encourage you to always start adding the analytics tag to your primary domain as well as all subdomains. And then the third point is that we want to have a filterless view. So that means in our case that we want to have a raw data view. In our case, the master view is the raw data view. So we won't apply any filters in this view, and it's primarily in the view setting. So we don't want to have any filters, we don't want to have any segments, we don't want to have any goals, we don't change a lot of view settings. So just stay away from all that, just keep it as clean as possible. So by saying that, we already covered the full account structure. So point 1, 2, and 3 are done. So the next things are the settings. So we want to have a look into the time zone, because when your users arrive on your data, one of the measurements, one of the dimensions will be the time. So if you see a peak around midnight, but most of the users are in Europe and your time is set to the US, that might give you all kinds of complications when analyzing your data. So in your account settings, you can change that. So I think it should be in account settings, or it will be in your property settings. So here you have your country of business, Definitely want to set that to the correct one, and then hit save. I see that there is no time zone in here, so that must be in the property settings then. Okay, so it's also not in here. So that's quite interesting. So I can't find it right away. So what I would do then in this case, just follow this link. And then it says, edit view settings. Update view name, time zone, site search parameters, and other. So it should actually be in the view settings. So instead of going into the account or property settings, we have to go into the view settings. Scroll a little bit down, and then indeed we find time zone right here. Okay, so we can change this to whatever time zone you're actually in with your business. If you're operating globally, I would just have the time zone where your kind of headquarters are, where the main, the larger part of your team is, and then just keep in mind when analyzing the data that you filter per country to don't skew your data too much. So that's how you can use these more info links. So that's the first point. That's done. Then the currency should be set correctly as well, which we can do a bit lower. So in my case, I'm in the UK, so we'll stick with British pound. We want to set a default page. So the default page in our case is the homepage zebrafarm.co. If you're unsure what the default page actually means, it means that if you have multiple URLs pointing to the same page, this one will be treated as the root. So if you have, for instance, a homepage that is www.zebrafarm.co.uk as well as zebrafarm.co, you want to have one of them appearing in Google Analytics, then you can change that right there. The next one is bot filtering. So we would like to exclude any traffic that comes from known bots and spiders. So these are like search engines or other kind of tool that is crawl website and visits a lot of websites and can skew your data quite a bit. So we can exclude those for the ones that Google knows. We want to take that box. Then we also want to enable site search tracking. So if you have a search bar on your website, so for instance, if we go to zebrafarm.co, you can go into resources and then search for instance, analytics. Okay, so there is a search functionality, and we would like to track what people would search so that we can create content for the items that people are actually looking for. So one way to track that is right away in Google Analytics. So we can enable this, and then we'll have to tell Google what is our query parameter when people search. So the query parameter is the parameter in the URL that is linked to the search bar. So in our case, we have a search parameter named search, and whenever you search for anything, for instance, let's search for Facebook, this will change. The variable from search will change. So Google will be able to tell that if there is a search parameter in the URL, that will be part of the string that people search in the search bar. So in your case, this might be a Q or S, or it might be lookup. It doesn't really matter what it is. It can be defined by anything. So your developer would have to place something there, or yourself might have done it. In our case, it's search, so we'll use that in here. And then we want to strip search out of the query, the search query, so that we just get clean search results. So we want to tick that box as well. You might have search categories as well. So that's this one. Currently this is turned off because we don't have any filters that enable this. But you might have search is Facebook and for instance price equals free. So you might have a search category of price where the price is equals free or premium, and then you can enable a search category which would then be named price, and I would strip the category of the parameter out of the URL. So then we can see how many times somebody clicks free versus premium. In our case we don't have that, so we'll turn that off. So that's the next point, site search enabled. Cool. So the next item is Google Ads and Search Console. So there are other tools within the Google portfolio, such as Search Console or Google Ads, that you can link to your Google Analytics account so that you have the data from those platforms all aggregated in one place. So the way to do that is in your property. So if we go back down, you'll see here in your Universal Analytics account product linking. So there are a ton of products that Google allows you to link. So we can go into all products and you can have a scroll like how many possibilities there are. In my case, I would just link Search Console. So that does mean that you have to set up Search Console. So in my case, it's already set up and I have it enabled for all views. The way to do that is simply follow the links in here. So go to admin, your property, and then product linking, and then click all products. And then here we'll say link Search Console, and it will open your Search Console. So if you have it set up already, you can just pick which one you want to do. So let's see if I can. Okay, so I can delete it, I can't change it. You will be able to change this here when you click it. Similarly, you can set up your Google Ads. So if you have a Google Ads account, you can link it right here. So I don't have a Google Ads account for Zebra Farm, so I can't link anything in here. We're not using any Google Ads. But if you have, you can link it as long as you're using the same Gmail account. So if your Gmail account for Google Analytics is the same for your Google Ads account, and you have edit and view access to that account, then you'll be able to link that right here. And the benefit of this is that your data will appear here. So your Search Console data will appear right here, and your Google Ads data will appear right there. So you don't have to use all those three platforms anymore, you can just use Google Analytics. Okay, so I'll just cancel for now because I don't have any Google Ads. The next point is to exclude URL query parameters. Okay, so for instance, I don't know exactly where this is. So let's use the more info link. Okay, so edit view settings. So this is in our view. Click edit admin view column. Exclude URL query parameters. Let's see. In the view settings. So it's right in here. Exclude URL query parameters. So you might have certain query parameters in the URL, such as search strings or cookies that you want to have in the URL, or any kind of weird authentication. So in this case, there might be, for this URL, it might be a good example actually. So there is everything that starts after the question mark are URL parameters. In this case, there's an auth user, so this is probably like a user authentication token or ID equal to this. And this might just be completely irrelevant to anybody in the marketing team, as well as in the engineering team. Nobody ever uses this ID, but it's just to map the right account to the right user. So you might want to exclude that in your page data. You don't want to have these big strings in there. You just want to have everything that's before the URL. So you want to know how many people visited this particular page, and not the page with the auth URL in there. So you can see that all in the URL bar. In our case, we don't do anything like that. Most websites won't do that, so then you can skip it. Okay, so then the next step are goals and events. So I have a separate video on this, but just to show you where it is, you'll have goals in here. So goals might be like a sign-up goal, which you can do based on like the page you are on. So you might have, let's do like custom. So custom goal description, sign up, and the destination might be when you visit a particular page. So let's say zebrafarm.go/sign up success. If you visit that page, then it means that you've completed the sign up, and therefore we count this as a sign up. Whether this is part of a particular value, we won't have any monetary value to that. You will have with transactions. This will be part of a funnel, so you can set that up in here as well, which will be part of a separate video. But this is where you can find it, so that's the important part. And separately, you can set up events, which are even more precise than goals, because as you can see with goals, you're quite limited to what you can do. You can do destinations, durations, pages, and events. But then with events, you will be limited to 20 goals. Well, most pages will have like 100, if not thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of events. So every button, every link click might be a separate event on your website. So it's important to know what you're doing and what users are doing. So I highly recommend setting up a lot of events and not to work much with goals. So events you can't set up inside Google Analytics. You'll have to set it up separately in your code base or via Google Tag Manager, but you can see them right here. So if you go into the sidebar and then click behavior, you'll find all your events right there. So in our case, we have events for books. So every time somebody reads or downloads a book, there's a particular event category called book, and there are certain actions such as downloading that book. So that's the stuff we would like to know, like how many times people actually download and what book do they then download, so that we can create more of that particular content if people find that valuable. So you can do that with events. So that's a core part of Google Analytics, which we come back to on like separate videos. Then the last few settings are around custom dimensions and metrics. Again, a separate video on this. I know I'm saying this a lot now, that there will be another video, but I will actually make one. We'll get to that. Important part here is to see what custom dimensions you have set up. So in our case, we've added user emails, first names, IDs, and pages. So this is very handy for a marketing team. If they want to know who downloaded a particular book, they are able to extract a list of user emails and first names if they want to, for instance, send those people a particular email campaign. Google has not added those dimensions by default. They're very custom to our product, our website. And so you will have a lot of custom dimensions as well that you might add that are unique to your product that Google doesn't know of yet. So there are ways to add those. Similarly for custom metrics, you might have certain metrics that you want to measure that Google doesn't measure. Google measures things like page views and session time, but you might want to measure particular monetary value. That's like a custom formula. You can add that in here as well. So that will be covered in a separate video. Then we'll go into content grouping. So let's go back to our page view settings and then go into content grouping. So what we can do here is to add certain pages together. So again, if this is not very clear to you, we have like a more info tab where everything will be explained quite nicely. So let's see if we can find an example. No. Okay, so we don't have any examples in here, but what you, for instance, can do when you have a website like this, there are certain pages that are specific for Facebook. So you might want to group all pages together that are the same for Facebook to see what's the overall users or interest into Facebook. For an e-commerce website, that might be the same as you have clothes for men, you have clothes for women, clothes for kids, and you want to separate those in different groups. So you can set that up in here, either by URL or different tracking codes. So this is mainly applicable to very large websites, so it might not be applicable to most of us, especially if you're just setting up Google Analytics. This is not the most important part. What isn't very important is the next item. So what will happen is that your employees or the agencies that you're working with will visit your website definitely in the beginning the most. So you probably have more visits from yourself than from users if you're just launching a new website. So what you like to do is, in your master reporting view, exclude any traffic that's yourself, so that you can really only focus on people that are actual users. So if you go into your filters, so to find filters, go into your view and then filters, you can add particular filters. And then I say create a new filter, filter name, IP address of Ruben, and then select filter type, exclude traffic from the IP addresses that are equal to, and then fill in your own IP address here. You can then filter verification and save it. So I highly recommend do that and only do it on your reporting and testing views. So don't do it on your raw data view. Just keep that clean. So that's internal employees and agencies. Then the next step is self-referrals. So self-referrals are, let me see, where can I find those? Probably in few settings. No. Okay, so I can't find a particular one, so we'll use the more info link. So self-referrals are caused by people entering your website via another page on your website, which you can exclude in admin, account, property column, select a property, and then click tracking info. Okay, so in the property column, tracking info, and then referral exclusion list. There we go. So what we'd like to do here is add any domains that we don't want to have traffic from as a referral. So if you, for instance, on zebrafarm.co and you enter another page from zebrafarm.co via a particular link, we do not see that as a referral. We see that as like internal traffic. So if it opens in a new tab or refreshes the page, we don't want to skew our referral data with internal data. So we want to exclude that. So you can add your own domains in here. You could also add different domains. If you own multiple websites and you don't want to have those as referral traffic, you can add them in here. What will happen then is that in your referral traffic, those will be excluded. All right, and then the last point is payment gateway referrals excluded. So similarly in here, we want to go into tracking info, referral exclusion list, and then add websites like paypal.com or stripe.com, whatever website you're using as a payment gateway. The reason that this is oftentimes when you check out via a third-party payment provider, you will open a modal or even a separate tab, and then once the transaction is completed, that payment provider will send this user back to your website. And that's not really a referral, that's just completing your website funnel. So you didn't get any referral traffic from Stripe or from PayPal or whatever provider you're using. It's just part of that product. So we want to filter that data out by adding these to like the exclusion list, the referral exclusion list. So with that, we went through all the settings. There are quite a lot, and as you can see, there are way more settings. So if you have ever any questions about it, feel free to let me know. Send me an email, send me a comment, and I'll try to get back to you. And if you have any tips on this video that you would like to have included, then also leave a comment. So thank you, and good luck with doing this audit for yourself.